Good morning, everybody, and happy Monday. Welcome back for your lunch break. My name is Ivana if you are new here. And if you are not new, thank you so much for coming back. Today, we're going to start off our Monday by talking about something that has really been talked about since yesterday and that really blew up over the weekend. And if you are on social media, which you probably are if you're watching us here, then you have probably seen the photos from Tuscaloosa outside, outside of the University of Alabama, where people were flocking to downtown bars on the Strip in Tuscaloosa, many not wearing masks and most not socially distanced. These photos came out on Sunday. One was even tweeted. We'll show you here in just a second, but one was even tweeted by Alabama offensive lineman Chris Owens. Tweeted this photo of, it's hard to say how many, but many people flocking to bars on the Strip. So we'll show you that photo in a minute. Today, I have got our own Ben Flanagan here. He is going to talk a little bit about the response to these photos from both city and school leaders. And we'll tell you what police have done since then, and also what the Galette owner has said in response to these photos. So Ben, thanks so much for coming and breaking this down a little bit for us. This is a story that even national outlets have picked up since yesterday because the photos are so shocking.
Yeah, so there was a lot of backlash over crowded lines around the bar Galette's on Sunday, especially because, like you mentioned, these photos surfaced on social media. They showed a lot of people who were not wearing masks and obviously, like you said, not practicing social distance. And the owner of Galette's, his name is Jeff Sirkin, he defended his bar publicly. He took to Facebook and defended the bar and said that they didn't do anything wrong. And he says that their bar following every guideline issued in state as best they can. So it has become, there is a bit of an uproar, I guess, on social media because you see a place like a bar, which is stigmatized in a lot of ways in the COVID age, right? We're all told, don't go to bars. That's the easiest place to catch or spread COVID-19. So when you see these photos surface, no matter where they came from, and you see crowds of people without masks around a bar that they plan to go into and crowd into, then obviously that sparks concern.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, we'll show you one of these photos, at least the one from Chris Owens here in a second. But these people were flocking to the bars, especially to Galette's, because of bid day. Ben, I know this is something that you have been covering. You've covered bid day for years, but if y'all are not familiar with the University of Alabama, bid day and sorority recruitment is a huge deal at the university. And bid day is the end of the week, the end of the sorority recruitment week, where the women who have been accepted into these different sorority houses receive their bids to join the sorority. And traditionally, these girls typically run from the stadium to their new sorority houses. That didn't happen this year. The formal sorority recruitment was held online, but the party at Galette's at the bar we were talking about was a bid day party. That was how they marketed it. Ben, can you give us a little bit of insight on what that party is typically like?
Well, and just to clarify, it was announced that bid day was going to go virtual this year, but I went out to campus on Sunday and saw that there were in-person activities related to bid day. They didn't run and scream outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium to their houses like they do traditionally, but there were groups of women in the nude who did travel together from Tutwiler Hall to their respective houses. So in a sense, there was bid day. It was like half bid day, sort of. So for those who don't know, Galette's is a really popular bar located on the Strip in Tuscaloosa. And they opened at noon on Sunday, promoting specials related to bid day, which, like you said, this annual culmination of the University of Alabama's formal sorority recruitment week. And it's a bit of a game day type atmosphere because of its proximity to Bryant-Denny Stadium. And because there's usually a large crowd, it's a pretty large scale event. Annually, it's quite a spectacle, and it was obviously toned down this year for obvious reasons related to the pandemic. But Galette still planned to have their annual bid day party, and they announced they will open at noon, and everybody can stay until closed. And bid day was all over their marketing. They have cups that they make for Yellow Hammers, these colorful plastic cups that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. They make special commemorative bid day 2020 cups like they do every single year. So it was a bid day themed party. And that is in part what drew the large crowd.
Right. Now, and we need to go ahead and just explain this photo. This is from, again, Alabama offensive lineman Chris Owens. That is who shared this photo. You can see this is obviously an outside photo. This is not inside of the Galette's bar or inside any of the bars on the Strip, but this is the line outside. Now you can see kind of towards the bottom of the photo, that's kind of part of the line that's entering the establishment, and following that is the line going down the sidewalk. Now, as Ben said, this was a party that is held annually. Of course, people maybe expected the party to be different this year, but those bid day cups were still released. It was still marketed as a bid day party. And Ben, I think it's interesting you compare this to a game day atmosphere, because that is certainly what it looks like.
Yeah, it's really something else. I mean, if you're a student and you've never been to bid day, and if you're a family member of somebody who is going through it, it's pretty unbelievable. Because again, there are, I would probably wager thousands of people out on Magnolia and Colonial and Bryant drives at these sorority houses on campus that are, again, like I said, in very close proximity to Bryant-Denny Stadium. And the way that it typically works is the women they gather in Bryant-Denny Stadium and they learn which sorority has given them a bid and which sorority they'll be a part of for conceivably the next 4 years of their lives at the University of Alabama. And what they do is they gather in the portals and the tunnels of Bryant-Denny, and one by one, the new pledge classes for the sororities literally run to their new sorority houses. And it's often called Squeal Day, because as they run, there's a lot of screaming. It's a joyful moment for a lot of these women and very exciting. And it's become this tradition that has spanned part of 100 years now, maybe more, at the University of Alabama. So it's a really popular event. And again, there are so many people there who are either family or friends, but at this point, there are just people who are onlookers there for what is this game day and sort of festival-like atmosphere. And it's fun for a lot of people. Again, I mean, if it's not fun for you, you can at least admire, again, the grand scale of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when we pulled up that photo, and just I'm seeing some of our comments come in, I do think it is important to remind everybody, especially if we have any out-of-state people watching here, that Alabama does have a mask ordinance. And that is what a lot of the hubbub, if you will, over this picture and over similar pictures on social media are. It's primarily about, this is a state order right now to wear a mask. And because of that state order, we have some information from Tuscaloosa police that I will go ahead and share. And that is that 12 citations were written. I have it written down, so excuse me for reading this, but 12 citations were written for mask violations. And in addition to those 12 citations that were written, there were 4 arrests made. Of those arrests, they pretty much all related to the mask ordinance in some way. Now, we have one person that was arrested and charged with obstruction of justice as officers tried to issue a mask citation to that person. We have 2 people that refused to sign their citations that were issued for the mask ordinance, and they were arrested. One of those was also charged with disorderly conduct and resisting arrest in that incident. And then we have another person who was charged with obstruction of justice and public intoxication, as she became involved in one of those prior arrests. So these arrests stemmed from the unwillingness of people to either sign their mask citation or to follow these state-issued guidelines. Now, I know, Ben, that the Tuscaloosa Mayor Walt Maddox tweeted kind of venting about his frustration about this whole situation. And same with UA Athletics Director Greg Byrne. He also issued a very strong statement about, look, you say you want football, but then you come out and you take these actions that are preventing us from having football, possibly preventing us. So, Ben, tell us a little bit about what the mayor and what Greg Byrne said.
Yeah, so these public figures, like you said, Mayor Walt Maddox and Alabama Athletics Director Greg Byrne, they tweeted about it. And they reminded folks that they're doing all that they can to make sure a college football season happens in 2020, and that sites like this are obviously very discouraging. And just to read from Greg Byrne's tweet, he said, "Who wants college sports this fall?" followed by a lot of sports-related emojis. And he says, obviously not these people, face palm emoji. We've got to do better than this for each other in our campus community. So obviously expressing some frustration there. Walt Maddox, he shared Byrne's tweet. He said, why? We are desperately trying to protect the city of Tuscaloosa. We are trying to have college football season. We have been running details for 3 straight nights involving the Tuscaloosa Police Department, which he said is stretched thin between COVID-19 and these details. And he's going to be requesting daytime help from UAPD. And he just stressed the importance, passionately, I might add, and with some colorful language, the importance of social distancing and wearing a mask to protect each other and to ensure college football season happens, which is obviously paramount to this community, not because everybody enjoys it. Everybody loves college football, but it's been noted through our reporting and other people's reporting that if there's no college football in Tuscaloosa, the city and the community will undergo a severe economic impact. Mm-hmm. It will be bad for the city. It'll be bad for business throughout the city, and it'll take a major hit. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions with a B. Right. So it's a big deal, and they want to make this happen for obvious reasons. And yeah, because we all love it. But if people are crowding bars and crowding restaurants, and if they're not taking this seriously and not taking the mask ordinance seriously, then it jeopardizes the future of not only college football, but other things that will have a tremendous impact on the economy.
And I think that it's interesting you note that, and especially that Greg Burns sent out that tweet pretty strongly worded saying, obviously, these people do not want football. And that could be a real wake-up call to a lot of people, I believe. Now, something I want to address really quickly that we're getting in the comments, and that is that we don't know the people in these photos if they were part of if they were part of Rush, if they were part of Bid Day. It should be noted there's a lot of men in these photos who are obviously were not accepted into sororities. So that is not that's not the point of this conversation, and that is not what we are saying. I think what might have gotten misunderstood to some people is that the bar was holding a party for Bid Day. Now, the sorority houses, when they did have some events later in the day, we do have a bunch of pictures of those on AL.com. I can leave the link in the comments here. Most of those people, not all, but most of the people at those sorority house events were wearing masks in those photos. That's not exactly what we're talking about here. We're talking about the photos from the bars. I'll put this one back up again from offensive lineman Chris Owens from this photo that he shared. You see, again, there's a lot of men in these photos, so they obviously were not part of Rush and were not accepted into a sorority, but they are at the bar celebrating Bid Day and the event that Bid Day is. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Ben?
Yeah, it's just important to note, you're right, that this is not just about Bid Day. I want to make that clear. Bid Day is something that happened to not necessarily coincidentally happen because Bid Day was all over Galette's marketing, right? It happened. They have an annual thing where they like to celebrate it, where people like to come to Galette's before or after the festivities and have fun, right? But it's important to note that UA's fall semester, their in-person classes begin this Wednesday, this week. And the return of students to town has prompted worry over spikes as they potentially visit bars and restaurants and private parties throughout Tuscaloosa. And that's where the concern continues to arise, where if they go to these places and gather and they're not distancing and they're not wearing masks, then we obviously have potential spread of COVID-19. So you're correct. And if anybody's commenting that this isn't just about Bid Day and sororities, that's true. Bid Day just happened to be happening, and it's something that is cause for celebration for a lot of people, including the bar Galettes.
Right. And I think it's important that you note that, Bid Day was Sunday, but students started returning to Tuscaloosa and to campus last week. Bid Day was Sunday, the end of sorority recruitment, and then classes start this week in person. So there's a lot of events that were this past weekend ending yesterday, were a culmination of and really a mark of this first weekend on campus and first college weekend, especially for many of our younger students who maybe just be going to campus in Tuscaloosa for the first time. So this was a big day and a big celebration day for the Strip and for all of the bars in Tuscaloosa. Now, again, Ben has talked with the Galette's owner, and he said, we did nothing wrong. And something that the Galette's owner really stressed to you, Ben, was that the people that came into his bar were wearing masks. He made a comment. I wrote down the quote. He said, "It is not my responsibility to police people 50 yards from the entrance to my front door on city property." So he was really making the point that when people come into the bar, they're his problem, and he will make sure they're wearing masks. But if they're outside, there's not much he can do.
That's right. And Jeff Sirkin, that's his name, the owner of Galette's, he took to Facebook late Sunday night and said what you just said. You echoed his comments, right? That they did nothing wrong. And I spoke to him recently for the podcast Outbreak Alabama, Alabama's coronavirus podcast. And we talked about the bar business, specifically his bar, how it's been impacted by all of the guidelines and restrictions that have been handed down by the state and the city. And he, like many others who share his opinion, whether they're restaurant owners or bar owners, their philosophy here or what they've said recently is, look, we're adhering to all of these guidelines that have been handed down. And if you hand any more down, if there are any more restrictions that come after we're following these rules, then we are going to be hurt financially. And especially if there's no season, places like Galette's and restaurants and businesses throughout the city, they're going to be hurt by that. So they're as impacted by coronavirus as anybody. But obviously, again, I mentioned this growing stigma, and the word that he used, Jeff Sirkin, was vilified, right? Bars have been vilified in the age of the pandemic, and understandably by some, because it's a place where people can go to gather inside and not necessarily socially distance. But if places like his are enforcing the rules and following the rules, then they're doing their part, and they have their own livelihoods to worry about, right? If they can't operate, they can't make money. And so it's a big deal to them that they are able to stay open. And every year when students come back to town, it's big business for the bars. It's big business for the restaurants. So I know where he's coming from. And I haven't been inside Galette's to see how it's being enforced. This is his word we're going on, right? And the staff of Galette's. But I drove by yesterday on my way to cover bid day, and sure enough, I did see a large line that was waiting to get in, because it's a very popular bar. It's a very popular event, and students are in town, and we can't necessarily count on everybody, right, to follow the rules and wear the masks and socially distance. It's a frustrating situation for people who are trying to follow the rules, whether that's bar or just bars or the greater community.
Absolutely. Again, we'll note that Tuscaloosa police did make 12 citations for mask violations, and they arrested 4 people on a total of 7 charges that did all relate in some form or fashion to violating COVID-19 regulations. Important to note, again, Alabama does, this is not a local ordinance. The state of Alabama does have a mask ordinance in place right now, and that's where a lot of these violations are stemming from. Again, we will go ahead and note that the Galette's owner said that inside people were wearing masks, and we're only seeing the outside photos. So we do just want to make that clear. And go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just going to say, our own Carol Robinson at AL.com, she reported that officers found that none of the bars exceeded capacity, but that many of the patrons were not wearing masks or face covering, again, which are required by state emergency guidelines. And according to the owner of Galette's, they have reduced capacity to less than even what they've been ordered to do. And he claims that they're going above and beyond, and that they've been complimented by the city and the police department. But obviously it raises concerns when you see photos like that. And technically he's right. He can't control who stands in line outside his bar, however far away that may be. But obviously I can just understand on the other side of it that it's also messy. It just looks like a big mess, and it's just something that nobody can fully control. And that's what's so frustrating about the pandemic for a lot of people.
Absolutely. I saw a comment earlier. I'm not sure from who it went up in my thread here, but somebody said that they're just sick of this. And I think that everybody is sick of the pandemic. I don't think anybody will argue with you on that. We do want to note that Tuscaloosa police said that they will continue to patrol the areas. They will continue to do what they can in response to patrolling the downtown areas, the Strip, and enforcing the mask rules. And the mayor also asked for help from the university police to enforce these rules in the downtown area. So we do want to make that clear. Another thing we will go ahead and make clear is that SEC is planning to have football right now. That message from Greg Byrne was more, I believe, of a warning, because there is so much back and forth. We've seen many of the conferences have to cancel their seasons over the pandemic. And his comments about obviously these people do not want football was alluding to having some sort of outbreak or having many people come down with COVID and affecting that SEC season.
Yeah, again, another frustrating aspect of all of this is because, again, we've mentioned the importance of college football in Tuscaloosa and the state of Alabama. You include Auburn, obviously, and the rest of the Southeast as it relates to the SEC. And our own John Talty has done some extensive and great reporting on this and whether or not this football season is going to happen. Right now, it's full speed ahead for the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, whereas the Big 10, and the Pac-12 have canceled their seasons. But it obviously just remains to be seen. This is a day-by-day thing. It has been since the pandemic started and since all the shutdowns began. So I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. It just depends on how well these communities are able to contain the virus. And we know now through our reporting and, again, other people's, that Alabama has done extensive work to try to not only to test their players, to try to contain it as best they can, at least within their facilities. But the tricky thing here is that once the players at any program leave their facilities and go into the community, whether they go to bars or restaurants, no matter what their coaches or what their programs may tell them to do or what they may advise them to do. And it sounds like Alabama and other schools are doing a great job in keeping everybody educated on what to do and what not to do if they want to make college. Whatever they tell them, you can't necessarily control everybody, right? And somebody may go out to a party, somebody may go out to a bar, and whether or not that jeopardizes the season or that respective team, it remains to be seen, but we just hope for the best.
Absolutely. That's all we can say at this point, Ben. Thank you so much for coming and breaking this down a little bit. We are going to leave the link to Ben's story that includes the response from the Galette's owner about this whole viral photo situation. We'll leave that link here in the comments so you can read it. We also have photos from the bid day events that were held on campus, all on AL.com. And please keep up with AL.com for the latest on this situation, on this Tuscaloosa bars and photo situation, and also for all of your other news. So thanks again, Ben. Thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.